Paramount Pictures invites you to leap into the future of adventure.
Red alert! All hands to battle stations, Captain Picard to the bridge!
Travel to the limits of time and space as the next generation of heroes takes you beyond the final frontier.
Make it quick!
Let's try and cheat death together.
Warp 1, engage!
Yes! Star Trek Generations. Special preview Thursday, November 17th. Regular engagement starts Friday, November 18th.
In which we burn.
Nothing you have seen.
It's a doorway that we call the Nexus.
Now we have a weapon of unlimited power.
I have the weapon.
Nothing you have imagined.
Why would he destroy a star? I have to stop him.
Can prepare you
All hands, brace for impact!
for the next generation of adventure. Star Trek Generations, rated PG. Special previews Thursday, November 17th, starting at 7 p.m. Opens Friday, November 18th.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the most glorious of events, the Movie Mavericks podcast. This outstanding program is hosted by two fine gentlemen, Jason and Trevor. Now make it so.
MovieMavericks.com.
Hey now, everyone, welcome to a special episode of the Movie Mavericks podcast. We're going to go where many people have gone before. I'm Trevor Anderson. This is Jason Rugard. He's going to let us know what we're talking about.
On tonight's episode, we are going to be discussing 1994's Star Trek Generations. I can't get Trek out tonight. It's a track, it's a trek. It's a long trail for these guys to go on, and we're talking about the seventh film in this long-running series. And I gotta say that it has taken me up till the recording of this podcast to get through this movie in its entirety. I have been trying for 30 years.
This is the first time you've seen it too, right?
Or all the way through, yes. I mean, I've seen bits and pieces.
Okay, so you started it. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I must have started, just trying to watch it for this podcast, I started and stopped it 3 times, no less. I just could not, it's so hard for me to get through this movie for some reason.
Well, there's a good reason, but we'll talk about that in a while. But this was a movie that I originally saw when it came out.
In theaters?
I didn't see it in theaters. I saw it on home video, but we saw it a bunch of times on TV. We would catch it throughout the times, but it was always the part where Picard was found Kirk in the woods or whatever, and he was chopping wood and all that shit. And he'd always watch until Kirk rides the horse and decides, fuck this shit, this ain't worth it. And then you go like, you're right, it's not. And you turn the channel. I've seen that part so many times. Fucking crazy.
I've seen the beginning with that slow motion credit crawl with the champagne bottle floating through space so many times. And it just, to me, that is emblematic of this entire movie. It moves at a fucking snail's pace. This is the Star Trek movie for old people, right?
Is it? I mean, really, this plays like a Next Generation episode. It's just not exciting at all whatsoever. It plays literally like a TV episode.
I couldn't agree with you more there, and continues the tradition of the odd-numbered Star Trek movies sucking for the most part, right? In comparison, I would prefer Part 5 over this movie even. And I know Part 5 is much maligned in the fandom.
Well, that's fair, but this is a Next Generation movie, so you have to pick one of the 4 Next Generation movies.
Okay, I think...
Or one of the other 3, I should say.
This is by far the worst of the Next Generation movies. I think this is the worst Star Trek movie. Let's be very clear about that straight up. And I don't hate the movie. I just think out of the original 9, this is the worst one, including the first one, which also moves at a snail's pace. But I can accept that because
10.
of what they were doing. Is there 10?
Yeah.
I thought, this is 7, right?
So you forgot 1, and it must be the worst one. Well, the 2 last ones are not very good. I mean, most of the Next Generation, like First Contact is great.
Yeah, what a rebound, right? From this
Nemesis,
fucking movie?
And Nemesis is okay too, but I really don't think Nemesis is that good. And Insurrection's awful. And I would say, if I had to pick, this is definitely the worst Star Trek movie, but it's hard to say, Insurrection's, I guess, more exciting than Final Frontier. So maybe it wins in that round, but they're both pretty awful.
I'll say that Insurrection is an easier watch for me because I've seen that multiple times, but the stakes are lower in that movie than in this movie, because this movie doesn't have
It's newer, so it's slicker. It's easier to watch, but it's not any better of a movie. It is a little more exciting, I guess, because it's more actiony than It is weird, right? How they went from less action, I guess, the original Star Trek movies are more action than the TV show, I guess, or bigger action because it's a big screen. But as you go forward, the Next Generation stuff is a little bit more actiony, except for Generations, which is awful. But and then you get into like the Kelvin timeline stuff, and it's all action, right?
Well, it was marketed, this movie, as a much hype event movie released in November because of the union of the old and the new, right? This was, to me, bringing back, for some reason, you had to have that bookend with the Kirk and the original guys, right? But they had put away the original crew so nicely in Undiscovered Country that it didn't seem worthy to tussle them all up again to get them into this movie. Do you think that the original cast adds anything to this movie?
No, well, the original cast is hardly in the movie.
They just bookend it.
It's mostly done to get Kirk back into this, which I don't really know why they even need him, especially after it's such a great send-off in the sixth movie, you know, Second Star to the Right, Straight On Till Morning. The crew's all there, and he gives this whole thing of like,
great.
You know, this is his final captain's log he gives at the very end of the movie, and he basically says the log line, where no one has gone before. Like, he switches it to the Next Generation thing. It's such a great send-off, and the crew's there, and you're like, yes, they're triumphant at the end of the movie, you know, and they go off. And then in this movie, they bring him back, and he goes, "It was fun. Oh my." And then he's dead. And this is the actual now send-off, the official send-off to Kirk in these movies now. So yeah, just this movie's awful in all regards. It's a horrible introduction. You know, opening up in the holodeck and doing the whole Worf shit is just a waste of time. It's such a weird introduction back into this again. And I get that they want, you know, we're all supposed to be friends, right? I'm part of the crew, I guess. I don't know what the hell the point of this is. This could have been more exciting, you know. And the whole ribbon thing is awful. Roping in Guinan into this as like some sort of she doesn't do anything. She does nothing except she knows some shit. That's it. What do you think about Malcolm McDowell as the bad guy? He's kind of underwhelming, isn't he?
What's weird is I like his look in this movie. He has a cool.
He has a good voice as an evil person, right?
And squaring off with Picard and that Patrick Stewart, essentially. They're very capable actors, very trained British actors. I kept thinking of Skyfall as I'm watching this movie in a weird way, because the sins of the past are coming up. It's affecting him.
They? I mean, what's his this guy is a drug addict.
Basically, he's got the Nexus, movie, right? Is his heroin?
Yeah, he wants to go into the ribbon and into the Nexus or whatever, and he just wants to live there because he's a drug addict, basically. That's the whole movie.
It's an underwhelming story, no doubt. The TV
what kind of a bad
story,
guy is this?
But
he's not a mastermind. He's just...
There's no stakes, really, with the villain. The stakes... And why is... You talked about Kirk. Hold on. Well, why is Kirk given 2 deaths in this movie? Initially, in the beginning, he's gone, right? So... But hey, get over that, because you know he's coming back. And then he dies again at the end. So
but don't they do that? Don't they do that with the entire crew of the Enterprise?
Over and over.
They crash land on the fucking at the Klingons, right? They have that fight, and then they crash land onto the planet, and they're dead. And then
when they separate the saucer.
Somehow, for some reason, you can just come out. You can time travel on the Nexus ribbon, luckily, and they can just decide to do this. It's like, well, why don't you? I don't understand why. If you could do this always, you could just always have fixed it. What?
With the whole Nexus in this time thing that fucking Kirk's existing in, I kept thinking of the connection to the 2009 J.J. Abrams with the quote-unquote alternate reality or the multiverse aspect with the Spock and meeting the other Spock. Sure. And I thought, was that the impetus of that because of this being set? Or is this just hokum that's going on in the Star Trek world to get these people combined on screen? You're more of a canon guy with the Star Trek stuff.
I can appreciate the Kelvin stuff, at least the idea that we're not going to reboot, we're going to do another timeline thing, because then it doesn't mess up this other stuff. I don't think they obviously, this is just a poor launch vehicle for the Next Generation movies. First Contact would have been a way better starter, you know, and probably they could have done, I don't know, that would have broken the curse, right, of the odd number movies if they just done something like First Contact. Maybe it wouldn't have been so poorly, because the whole franchise is kind of it's so different, and it kind of goes down until you get to the Kelvin stuff. But even that goes down in quality, if you will. I mean, I really like Star Trek Beyond a lot, but it's just a movie. Like, it's not important to anything whatsoever.
It's just an entry. It's not.
But that's what happens with all the Next Generation stuff. Feels like they don't build on anything. I don't know. if you watch the first 6 original movies, you feel by the time you get to that number 6, there's a camaraderie there. Like you've been on voyages with that crew. Like I love those characters, not just from the show, but from those movies. Like it's great. You don't get that with the Next Generation movies, as far as I'm concerned. You got that from the Next Generation show for sure. So it kind of transfers over, and it's okay that that's not in the movies, I guess. But I don't know. I wish it was. I wish those movies had some sort of. They just mattered more.
I found Star Trek through the movies as a kid. Friend's dad loved these movies. First one I ever saw on the big screen was part 4. It was set in San Francisco where we were seeing it at. It was about the whales, and it was really fun. And then I grew to like the Next Generation television show based off my interest in the original 6 movies. So I'm all with you there. And I do think that the television show for the Next Generation is a lot more engaging than the movies that were made for the most part from that series. But I do also think that there was an obligation here to make this something that was at least worth ticket buyers' time and money, because the story is television level. This could have been a 2-parter on Next Generation. The direction is so functional that if you watch part 6 or some of the better directed entries, there's actual camera movements that invoke emotion, that suggest things. This is just captured and made in the editing room and put together and assembled, and it just, here you go. It looks exceedingly cheap as well. I mean, the sets look cheap, and I know all the sets are basically the same, but I don't know if it's because of the lighting, and this was lit by John A. Alonzo, who did Scarface and big movies, and so I look at this thing and I go, why does it look so stilted?
It looks like a TV episode.
Yeah,
the whole thing does. Not to kick a dead horse, but I mean, what you described is Star Trek: The Motion Picture, right? The same circumstances, right? They knew they had to make a Star Trek movie. Space movies were popular. They were going to make one, and they had the same problem, and that movie sucks. Yeah, okay, I still kind of like it, but it still sucks, right?
It sucks.
As far as a Star Trek movie goes. And so does Generations, and it has the same problem, right? They knew they had to make a movie, and the studio dictated what that movie needed to be, what needed to be in that movie, and thus we got a shit movie, which is exactly, it's like they never learn, right? This is how they make movies now. Why are movies not so good right now? Well, that's how they're made, right? Studio dictates, really mandates, these are the things that needs to be in this movie because these are the things that need to be sold. This was the same happened to music when producers would say, you have to do this type of thing. Or remember, in the 90s, music videos, and they had to show the band playing. Mm-hmm. And that was dictated by the music companies and stuff. So it's just weird. I don't know. It's just bad when you allow the business side to take over the art side, right? And we just got a movie that wasn't very good.
To speak on that, I want to take a quick break here and let the audience listen to 2 bits of marketing that were tied into this movie. One is 4 collector's cups from Jack in a Box, and the second is action figures, phasers, and all sorts of merchandising. Listen to this.
In a distant corner of our galaxy, an invincible alliance has been formed.
Engage! Let's go!
Jack in the Box and the new Paramount motion picture Star Trek Generations team up to give you a free Star Trek Generations movie collector's cup when you galaxy-size any Supreme Value combo. For just 39 cents more, beam up to bigger fries, a larger drink. Collect all 4 limited edition cups. It's a stellar deal for just 39 cents more, only at Jack in the Box.
Beam us up, Captain.
You have just entered a new dimension of play. Star Trek: The Next Generation. Action figures, phasers, space sets, and Enterprise. Their mission? To boldly go where no one has gone before. Go with them. Star Trek: The Next Generation. A world of action and adventure now in your galaxy from Galoob.
Paramount Pictures and the Sci-Fi Channel present the Star Trek Generation Sweepstakes. The USS Enterprise and her crew face their toughest challenge, a challenge that must be met by 2 captains, but there's only 1 captain's chair, and you could win it. Watch the Sci-Fi Channel for your chance to win an official Starfleet captain's chair, or Star Trek Screen Voyages video cassettes, or an autographed Generations poster. The Star Trek Generation Sweepstakes is brought to you by Paramount Pictures, AT&T, Suncoast Motion Picture Company, and the Sci-Fi Channel. Star Trek Generations opens November 18th.
Okay, we're back. So a lot of decisions were made by Paramount because this was a Christmas release to get this out there. The marketing chain was big and all the affiliates that were pushing this. And this did manage to have a #1 opening in the crowded November holiday season of '94. making about $70 million in total, or around $200 million in today's dollars, which is about what the J.J. Abrams entries made. So it was successful. It did prove there was life in the series, but I think that in the fandom, this is the least regarded of them all. Am I correct? I mean, are you a Trekkie? Do you consider yourself a Trekkie?
I think it's the most forgettable one. I don't really consider myself a fan enough of anything to be a part of a group about it. Like,
you're not wearing your outfit right now as we record this?
About it. I'm not. I don't.
That's a missed opportunity.
I do have. I don't know. Like a foot tall statue of the Borg Queen. I might have that.
He might be wearing a Worf mask.
Yeah, if that makes me a Trekkie. No, I love Star Trek, but I don't really think I'm that much of a Trekkie. I love Star Wars too, but I don't really like getting too much into anything beyond what's actually on the screen. Although they have books, the books are pretty good for both Star Wars and Star Trek. But I don't know. I don't really like doing anything more than what's already available. I'm not going to do fan stuff. I don't care.
No fan fiction.
Enough about that, yeah. Or sit around and worry too much about it. I watch the movies. I'm good. So I don't know. This is definitely the worst one. I don't think anyone likes it. It's easily the one that could be dropped from the whole of all of it. It just disappear and it doesn't matter.
I watched this on Paramount Plus. All right, and I got a question for you.
I watched it on VHS.
You watched it on VHS, which is, the proper way to watch this movie, because this movie was everywhere when
That's
it came out.
That's why I've mostly seen it. It would be full screen on a CRT TV. That's how I watched it this time. I mean, you talked about this being a big release. I remember when this came out because my parents were big Star Trek Next Generation fans, and it was a big deal. It was also awful.
Did they like it as fans?
No, they hated it.
Really? Both of them?
Yes. They did not like it. They were like, this movie fucking sucks. That's why, and part of the reason why I never really watched it very often, but we would, like I said, my dad, we would come across it every once in a while on TV, on TBS or, God, I can't remember.
It played a lot on TBS or TNT, one of those stations.
Yeah, it was one of those. And it was always, I swear to God, I've seen him chopping wood so many fucking times. Like, it's ingrained in my mind.
I've seen that part on the boat where he pushes her into the water. It's in bad taste that they have Worf and they're making him walk the plank in hindsight.
It's funny, right? Yeah, they're poking fun at him. They're all having a good laugh. That's what I mean. Like, it's like, welcome back to the crew, guys. Ha ha ha. Aren't we all friends? It's fucking dumb.
But hasn't the whole chip in his head, Data's head, and wanting to have an emotion, haven't they gone down that stream before on the show?
Yeah, that's on the show when he, right, yeah. So when he finds his brother, right? What's his brother's name?
Is it, I can't think of it either.
I know, I just want to say Loki, but obviously that's not it. But
Trekkies are going to be screaming at us right now, but I know what you're talking about.
So that's why I say I'm not a Trekkie, but I know it, but I watched it, but I don't care enough to...
But that bit of business
write essays, but anyways, you're right.
Is useless to this episode and him wanting the sense of humor and being overloaded by the emotion.
They do it just to give him something to do, right? I mean, LaForge is literally just everyone is in this just to play their part in a way, right? They just take up time on the screen. It's not nobody does anything really important or matters, and in the end, it doesn't really fucking matter anyways because they just time travel back, stop it. It was fun, and then it's fucking done.
There's one very badly acted scene by the usually reliable Patrick Stewart in this movie, and that's when he's sitting with the doctor and talking about his nephew who was killed. He at the photo album. Do you remember the scene? I don't know if it's badly acted as much as badly edited, or they put the wrong takes. It seems like a schizophrenic episode is happening. He is all over the place, and he's crying at one minute, then he's kind of talking, and then he's sobbing again. It's horrible. That scene should not be in this film. I'm surprised it's in this movie.
That's kind of how the whole movie is, though. The movie really doesn't know what it's supposed to be or what it's supposed to do, where it's supposed to go. It just kind of is existing in this weird limbo. It doesn't make for good editing. It doesn't make for good direction. It starts with the writing, but again, I think, as you said, it starts with the studio, right? It starts with them listing these things have to be in the movie, and they just kind of have to write around that.
As I was watching this on Paramount Plus, as I was getting to a moment ago, is that I felt like the special effects were punched up. Do you know if they went back at all on these and did any sort of punch up like they would have done on the Star Wars? Because I don't know if this special effects looking like this at all. Then again, I saw what I did see over the years was on TBS or VHS or any of those kind of things.
Well, they had special editions released for
Yes,
for
DVD
everything.
releases.
I can't remember about this one though.
Looked a little
they
punched up.
redid the special effects obviously on the shows, right? On both the original and Next Generation. And they did do special effects on the first movie. I don't know what... I mean, they did punch up special effects on, I think, on some of the releases on some of the other movies, but they didn't do a lot. Aside from the first movie, I think they did. But they literally did that like a long time ago, right?
Yeah, it would have been like...
Especially
in the early 2000s, I would say.
They may have done that earlier than that on the first movie. I can't remember. They had the double disc DVD releases, which are still at my parents' house.
Those are great. Those big gray
awesome.
binder.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I said I have a lot of these movies on. Well, shit, I watched this on VHS, but I have a lot of these on Blu-ray. But it's like I'm never getting rid of those DVDs. Those were amazing when I got them.
Those things were expensive. Those were like $40.
Yeah, they're like
25 years
director's
ago.
cuts, special editions, this and that, whatever. And they have like a second disc full of special features.
Full of them.
I don't remember if they did anything with Generations, to be honest with you. I don't know if it was worth it. I don't know if they did anything with any of the Next Generation stuff, because there's a lot of this stuff's already CGI. One of the big things, or one of the big draws of Generations was that it had really good special effects, which do not really hold up now, but for the time, they're still pretty good.
Yeah, I thought they looked better than what I was expecting, I guess, and I don't know why
There's
I was
a lot
expecting
of CG
such
in
little
it.
stuff.
There's a lot of motion controlled ship stuff still, the model stuff.
Looks great.
There's a lot of CG in it as well.
Well, when they separate from the saucer, from the ship, I thought that looked great. And there was
That's all, I believe, CG.
Some of the stuff in the Nexus or the ribbon stuff looked a little funky.
That's all I think CG. The Nexus, the ribbon stuff was all CG. You can read when the stuff's CG and stuff and not.
Let's listen to what Siskel and Ebert had to say about the film.
Siskel and Ebert review Captains Kirk and Picard battling a 24th century villain in Star Trek Generations.
The crew of the Starship Enterprise race against time and time travelers to prevent a solar system from exploding in Star Trek Generations. One of 5 new movies we'll be reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. The theory and practice of Star Trek studies has reached such an expert level that I wonder if you'd even be able to understand one of these movies if you'd never seen a previous Star Trek film or TV show. If you walked in cold, you'd probably wonder, who's the Spock they're talking about? Star Trek Generations, the 7th in the series of movies, is an example. It spends a lot of time dealing with the changing of the guard in this continuing saga, where the veteran James T. Kirk has given way to the newcomer Jean-Luc Picard as captain of the Starship Enterprise. Only belatedly do we get into the actual story, which involves a mad scientist who is desperate to return to a strange space energy coil. I was somewhat underwhelmed by the notion of the Nexus, and especially when I realized that a star and all of its planets and millions of living beings were going to be destroyed by Malcolm McDowell simply to steer the Nexus to a planet where he planned to stand on a rickety steel bridge and jump up into it. If he's off by just a few inches, that solar system has died in vain. The premise is silly, but even sillier is the ending, which boils down to an old-fashioned fist fight on that sagging iron bridge with big close-ups of the bolts popping loose and the chain links about to break and threatening to drop the heroes to their deaths. Why is it that the movie begins with such vast ideas and ends in such small cliches?
Well, Roger, the things that you knock about the picture, I can't really praise that much. I mean, at the same time, I think there's a whole section to this picture, a whole thing that's going on through it that is very entertaining, and that is the way that these characters like each other, like their colleagues, and like working with each other. And that feeling is constantly there in the picture. And so as a result, I sat through all the stuff that you mentioned. It's not that great, but I sat through it and I enjoyed the camaraderie there, and on that basis I recommend the picture.
See, I think your response is very typical of Trekkers, of Star Trek
But
fans.
I'm not a fan of...
but it's typical of them, because what happens is this series is now like family.
Right.
And a lot of these movies are not so much drama as they are episodes of showbiz history, you know, like Kirk turns over command of the Enterprise, you know, and, you know, talk about what Spock would have done in a situation like, it's just like a family reunion. And if you really look at it, you know, kind of with a cold eye in terms of just exactly how good of a science fiction movie this is, it's a pretty silly one.
I'm not a science fiction fan to begin with, and I enjoy it on the basis of family, and only that basis.
This didn't hang around the box office too long. It spent, I think, was about 4 weeks in the top 10 and then dropped out and became a big hit on video because this thing was a big renter for a long time. It hung around, but only 1 week in the top spot. Heavy competition during that winter 94 season, things like Interview with a Vampire, the Santa Claus, I mean, just big Dumb and Dumber, Junior, big titles. But this movie, I think, really found its audience on the VHS, because I remember this always being like every video store had multiple copies of this. The video box in the one sheet will be burned in my head forever because of that.
I know, right? Yeah, I know. You can. This is definitely something where you just see. You don't have to. You can remove the words. I mean, obviously, it's obvious to get go, but just the idea of the image of what this is. Right? Yep. Here, it's like, oh yeah, it's Star Trek Generations, and how is that? And that is probably the most recognizable one in my head as well, just period, because of that. But it's also the one that I've seen the least. So,
yeah, I mean, like I've seen all of these movies, the majority of the series of Next Generation, and it took me 31 years to finally get through this fucking movie. So I think that says something, because when you have a no-name behind the camera too, this David Carson who directed it, who was really from the television show, you're telling the cast you don't really give a fuck about this movie, right? If you're Paramount and you put this guy behind the camera, you're saying this is a little something. We don't expect much from it if it does. And I think that's probably why Jonathan Frakes, William Riker there, got behind the camera and did a great job with First Contact. I don't know if he just lucked into that being a fantastic movie or what, but I was always surprised what a rebound First Contact is from this.
First Contact gets the camaraderie right. It does everything that a Star Trek movie, the original Star Trek movies did correct. It just gets everything right. It's a voyage that's exciting, but is also science based in some way. I mean, it's not really. It's all fucking made up, but it's Star Trek, right? Which is about science and society and how things work, and you're dealing with a world that is about to become the world that the next generation characters live in, right? It's on the cusp of that, right? They've had the war. It's just a far more interesting a world to visit and to get into than Generations, which is just nothing. It's not it's just guys hanging around doing nothing. Generations is an awful movie. What's the point of it?
Also, Shatner's line readings in this, I want to talk about a few things.
He's horrible in this movie, but it's also great, but at the same time, it's bad.
It's the Shatner of it all, right? It's him. There's a couple of parts. He's not in it all that much, right? He's probably got less than 10 minutes of screen time, 15 minutes of screen time.
But when he is in it, he's in it.
But the thing is,
he eats it up,
He's taken every chance he can to get on there. And the favorite part is in the beginning, when he's introduced to Chekhov, to Sulu's daughter. Chekhov's introducing him to Sulu's daughter. Mm-hmm. And he says, I remember you when you were this tall. And she says, well, now I'm the commander or whatever. And he goes, instead of saying incredible, he says, incredible. Like he drags that syllable and he like forces his hand out when he does it. It's so theatrical and overplayed. It's fucking hilarious. Take your time, Bill. Like Take your time. More screen time for you.
When Picard meets him again, in the Nexus for the first time, he's walking through and he's going through in his mind, he's trying to catch up where Picard is. It's like, and Picard is like, it doesn't even feel like it's Picard anymore. It feels like it's Patrick Stewart just sitting there waiting for him to like act his shit out and be like, okay, can we get past this fucking shit? Like I already did this. I figured this shit out immediately. And the Patrick Stewart stuff is way more interesting than the Kirk stuff, which is just like he's in a log cabin and he's like, wait a minute, this shit's too easy.
Well,
okay.
The Kirk stuff, it keeps pulling the movie down, to be honest with you, because it's you from the jump that Kirk's not dead, so it's not like there's
it doesn't have a point, right? Picard's on a mission when he enters the Nexus. Kirk is just fucking there.
But why did the new crew give a fuck about rescuing Kirk anyway? I mean, why did they?
They wanted to stop the I don't know, but they wanted to stop the guy from blowing up the star, right? Because it killed all the people on the planet.
Okay,
that was their whole point of them going there to stop this. Otherwise, they wouldn't give a shit at all. I don't think.
Well, it was nice to see Whoopi Goldberg's character in this movie because I was always a fan of her in the Generations.
I love Guinan, but this is so stupid.
This is just arbitrarily putting her in a situation that doesn't do anything great for her character. That character comes off very badly in this movie.
It's just. Yeah, it's literally like watching a fucking television episode of this, and I'm beating a dead horse maybe, but that's what this felt like, right? It just was unimportant. It was just like, and it's not a good episode either. This is a throwaway episode.
Yeah. Throwaway movie, ultimately.
That's what I'm
as
saying.
well.
You can watch all of them and not watch this, and it doesn't do anything to it at all. But I don't know. It's
well,
bad,
now that
right?
we've beaten up on it, though, I do have to say something. I do
actually secretly love it.
No, I find something very comforting in watching these original 10 movies. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the score, if it's just the sound design of the doors opening and closing, if it's just the gentleness of it all. They're easy to fall asleep to. Do you know what I mean by that? Like it's a...
Yeah, well, the show especially. I mean, Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, that generation of this, it definitely has that hum of the spaceship, which is just amazing, right? Like that's world building as far as I'm concerned. When I hear that hum and that shh, the opening of the doors and closing of the doors, it's like, oh my god, like put me on that because I'm just wonderful. It just feels like. I don't know. It's one of those things where sometimes when you sleep, it's like you hear people like maybe doing dishes or something rattling. People busy doing something makes you like comfortable somehow. Is that?
Yeah, there's bits of business going on about. Yeah, I know what you mean. And these movies have it in spade. And when I'm watching this, I'm thinking like, they're so oddly comforting because you know what you're getting to, and what they all, for the majority of these movies, they all say something. But what is this movie saying?
Thank you. Yes, right. Isn't that the most important thing? Because even in the movies that don't matter so much, or they're bad, even they still say something. But the characters also say something. They stand for something. Something happens with the characters, and it builds them up somehow. They have to make a stand. They have to do something, even if it's small. And it's Star Trek, so it's not necessarily even going to be action based. It might just be.
Ideological,
wrestle with some sort of decision, ideological, societal. I think more, but yeah, it might be something like that. You're going to be dealing with different cultures and stuff like that, which makes it wildly interesting. While at the same time not being action based, but the movies have to be more action based, right? Because they have to be bigger, so that makes sense. But this movie seems to want to. Not be ideological and not be action based. It's at the same time. It's weird, right? Like the movie's big, I guess, because it has big special effects, but the characters don't really do anything like amazing, right? Like the whole fight sequence between Picard and like
Soren,
whatever the guy is, that his name? Yeah, Soren. Is a joke, right? Like Picard gets stuck in the rocks and shit. It's fucking like, what is going on? Like this is just stupid, And then when Kirk shows up and they double team him, it's just as bad. It's like, this is ridiculous, you guys. This is your big like. This is 1994. We have fucking Schwarzenegger and Van Damme and Stallone. Like, who the fuck are you kidding? Trying to do this shit? We're like, no fucking way.
You're not going to live up to speed in the same summer, and then you got Star Trek Generations. It seems old hat at that point. But when I was watching this movie, and I'm thinking like contextually and the time it's out and what's going on, the country was coming off that whole crack epidemic, and I'm thinking, was Star Trek trying to say...
Is that it?
Is that what this is? It's like basically a crack addict. And it's
That's
like,
a good point.
Because it reminded me of like License to Kill when James Bond is basically in a Miami Vice episode and he's going after a drug dealer. You know what I mean? Like it just...
Yeah, no, I know, yeah.
So I'm trying to think of like what other reason, because the opioid epidemic hadn't happened yet.
I don't know.
But it's basically a drug addict, like you said.
But it's just such a bad fucking evil character. It's not even evil, actually. It's just bad, right? Like
it's a pitiful character. You pity him more than anything. How could that be
the bad guy? This is these guys are going on a voyage here. They have to either go on a voyage to accomplish something, or they need to come up against a bad guy that is worthy of them being like Khan, or something. Or if you're going to go that route of the bad guy, you need a good bad guy, right? Otherwise. You need like a voyage for them to go on. You need like they need to get through, the hero's journey, if you will. But Odysseus or something, right? They got to go on the voyage. This is like it just wusses out on both those, right? Because the voyage in this is dog shit. They just kind of fly one place. Yeah, there is no journey, right? Like really, it's awful.
Well, that's why it takes the whole call to action. the epilogue, if you will, with Kirk in the beginning business with him, getting lost or killed or whatever the fuck it is, sucked out into space. I mean, really,
B or whatever the hell it is. Yeah,
and that plays okay. Although one of my favorite parts again is when Alan Rickman asks, not Alan Rickman, what's his name?
Should be Alan Rickman.
Is it Alan Rickman?
No,
it's what's his name? The fucking guy from Ferris Bueller. His buddy.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Anyways, also in Speed. And he asks him to come and take
that guy's name? Alan Ruck.
Alan Ruck, thank you. And he asks him to come over. He asks Shatner to come over back and take the captain's seat. And he says he waves no, but the way he waves no, he puts his index finger and his thumb pressed together, and then like he spreads his other fingers and waves. It's just the strangest use of your body you ever seen a human being do. It's like, are you a fucking alien, Shatner? Who waves like that? Who waves something off like that? It's just one of my favorite little moments in this movie that I've seen. That part.
He came up with the "oh my" was the last words. So,
well, was that an homage to Sulu?
No,
I mean,
he was thinking like, what would Kirk say like when he's dying and he's seeing like death and he's seeing like the Grim Reaper and shit. He'd be like, wow, this is whoa, I'm like going into this like his last
new voyage
or whatever. So he goes, oh my. So that's where fucking that's where he was in his mindset like within this movie. That's
where he decided to end his iconic character.
That's where Shatner was. Where I feel like Shatner's there a lot in almost everything he does, which is what makes Shatner so fucking good, because he's not. He gives Shatner some dog shit fucking script, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna fucking Shakespeare the hell out of this.
Oh yeah, he'll fucking milk. He'll extend your film's running time by 10 minutes just by his line readings alone.
Yeah, so it's a curse and a blessing,
I mean, thinking about this, I compared this earlier to Skyfall in a lot of ways, but I'm thinking now it's more like No Time to Die, where they killed off Bond at the end. Because did your parents dislike the fact that they killed off Kirk, or they just hated the movie in general?
Well, I think they just hated the movie in general. I don't think nobody cares at this point that Kirk died. I really don't think anybody cares, because that was done. We were so far. Well, this is 1994. We are well into Next Generation at this point. We're done with the old ones. And 6 was such a good send-off. I can't even explain how good of a movie 6 is.
People clapped at the end of that movie when I saw it in theaters.
Shit, was that a good movie? And again, that movie wasn't a high action movie, but it was a voyage movie, right? They went. I won't get into it, but that whole movie is fucking awesome, right? And that movie takes Kirk and Spock and separates them, and yet somehow they're still like bros on the same wavelength. Yeah, like they're still working together.
Beautifully done.
Far away. It's just
it has humor. Also, First Contact has humor. Where is the humor in this? Is watching Data discover humor?
Yes, that was it. Like LaForge and Data on their little side mission to fucking do nothing, right? I mean, it accomplishes nothing. But yes, that was the whole chip thing, was just to give these people something to do in the meantime, because they just don't do anything. I mean, Riker is fucking useless. They fucking die, right?
Well, so's Crusher. I mean, what do they give her to do? Nothing.
Yeah, the whole thing. Worf is the whole. I don't know. The whole movie's just written awfully,
Well, we clearly did not enjoy our look back at Generations here.
I wish it was better.
I knew better than to think that this was going to be the undiscovered gem of the bunch that I hadn't watched.
The poster, though, make you think it would be better?
Even the trailers that we played at the top of the show make you think it's going to be better.
That's why, first of all, I should say how we got into this. I found the VHS of this.
Yes, you did.
And I looked at it and I just thought, I have to watch this because this looks fucking amazing. And then you turn over the back of it, you're like, yes, I want to watch this. This sounds fucking awesome. And I know better because I've seen it before.
I will say, I give you grace because this was a Paramount release. And during this time, their VHSs and their marketing was fucking fantastic. Those video sleeves were glossy. They made you want to.
Yes, it is.
Just watch it.
It's shiny and like, ooh.
Oh, the sound of that Paramount logo. And now our feature presentation, anyone from our generation can hear that. If you know what I mean? It's a beautiful noise that played over that logo. I love those releases from that era, whether, early 90s to basically late 90s, Paramount releases were just beautiful, the marketing was just great back then. That's why they were a powerhouse studio, and they've fallen on tough times recently, but they don't, they don't have a Star Trek to exploit. The fact
not
is
having
now
home video makes a big difference.
It's been 8 years since a Star Trek movie, which is the longest stretch that any star from any point of a star since 1979 to now.
You're describing this as you're describing it. Think about the difference in Discovery between then and now. You would watch the beginning of the tape; it would start, and you would watch trailers. Upcoming attractions. And then it would play a thing, feature present, like the whole presentation of it was just amazing, and the discovery of movies was incredible, right? You got to see the trailers and all the stuff. I want to see that. I want to see that. That doesn't happen now. You go through the menus. I guess it plays a trailer-ish thing, but it's not really a trailer. I don't know.
It's not the same. I can still to this day, I can recite the Addams Family 1's trailer because it was trailered on the Godfather 3 tape that we watched all the fucking time. So it's like, I watched that to the point where I know that trailer, it's like.
And why? So you were like me then. You would rewind the tape all the way to the beginning and watch the whole thing, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
And people fast forward is what I'm saying. I don't do that. Even now, I'm like, nope, start from the beginning.
You gotta watch
all the trailers. Even if I don't want to watch the trailer, I'm watching it.
My uncle used to rent tapes from Warehouse Records, which was like a Tower Records up here in I don't know if they had one down there. Do you have Warehouse Records back in the day?
I've seen the advertisements for it. I don't know if we had one.
It was like a Tower Records, and they did music, obviously, but they had like a section you could rent videos from. And like Blockbuster, they were closed at midnight, and you had to get the tape in. And I remember my uncle rushing to get through movies because he had to take it back, and he would like fast forward through scenes. He'd be like, yeah, I get it. He like pushing his finger on the fast forward button and shit, like watching a few minutes and then having to fast forward and then like racing down and getting it back at like 11:53 and shit.
I do that on streaming. So easy to do that because you push forward. It doesn't even fast forward anyway. You just like skip through the thing. You're like, oh, perfect. And you can see like where it is. So you can go, I want to get past this to there. Perfect.
Well, what's amazing is too, like things on YouTube or even Netflix now have that speed button like you were talking about. And you can put things at like 1 1/4 speed. And then you realize how much wasted fucking time there is in a lot of movies where you're like, this thing is really slowly paced if it's still slow at 1.25 speed, like what the fuck?
Yeah, some stuff's really slow now, but things are more drawn out now, I feel like, than ever before. Generations obviously is really slow, but like you think about shows and stuff that are on streaming now, they're really like movies, but they've taken the movie and made it like 8 hours long. And there's some, I don't know, there's the way they grow things. Everything thinks it's an HBO show. It's like always, everything's so, amazing. It's all worth it. It's a slow burn. You'll love it. It's world building.
No, I don't.
It's just characters sitting there like talking about shit. After a while, it's fucking tiring, right?
If it was in the theater, people wouldn't love most of these things that they watch at home on their Netflix. And really, it's playing in the background as they're scrolling on Amazon on their phones.
As I understand it, they're scrolling on their phones in theaters too. So
yeah, it's true.
Welcome to the new world. I guess it doesn't matter anymore if that's the case, And I'm on my phone too a lot of times when I watch new stuff, especially because it just doesn't fucking matter. The whole point is just to get you to sit there and watch, which seems like a waste, right? Why would I? Don't they know that? If I'm on my phone, I'm watching their shit. Am I not just watching? What? Why don't you just make it shorter?
Because they're getting the fucking streaming hours, bro. That's what they want.
But you would spend less money to make less. You'd get the same amount of viewership. You get the same eyeballs. Unless, the ads. I'm wrong. They're all ads now. I'm not thinking about it. Yeah. Nope, that's it. That's why they're going to ads. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense now. I have no ads on anything, but they have all those ad tiers that they're bringing into all the streaming services now. That it makes total sense. Yeah.
Well, like I said, you saw this on VHS. I saw this on Paramount Plus. This is a widely available movie even today. You can check it out anywhere. If you haven't seen it yet, you're not missing anything.
Do it. Watch it now.
And I'm sure that this movie has its fans out there as well as its many detractors.
Does it?
I think that I would never go back and rewatch this movie.
You can find me a fan of Generations. I don't know what I'll do, but if you find me a fan of Generations, something will happen.
It's really a missed opportunity too by the producers, because this was an era when there was no Star Wars. There's no competing science fiction franchise out there that was really big. This is pre-Independence Day, pre-Matrix. I mean, there's really no other science fiction stuff coming out that had a name like this at the time. They should have crushed it.
Not as a franchise, no. I mean, there was individual science fiction was, well, all B-movie stuff. Science fiction, horror, action movies in general during this time period were all big.
Well, so like Stargate came out this year.
Yeah, that's why I think they pushed to make this, right, no matter what, which was the mistake of not having something worthwhile to make. They just needed to make something.
Yeah, it felt contractually obligated more than anything.
Well, yeah, because it was hot, right? It's hot. Sci-fi was hot. You had your Time Cops, you had your everything, right?
Well, especially in '94, it seemed like a regeneration of sci-fi.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
X-Files,
coming out of the '80s into the '90s, yeah, it was big sci-fi, right? Huge.
Because the special effects jumped as well, so they could get away with a lot more, CG stuff.
I mean, they took they absconded away with the B movies, right? They turned B movies into A movies, and Hollywood learned that if they could spend money on special effects and on big things, which God bless them. But if they learned they could do that, then people would come watch it, right? And they would make way more money than the old style of A movies, which would have been actors and acting and just look at the difference in movies look at the difference in B movies from the '60s to A movies to A and B movies in the '90s.
Well, even A and B movies in the '80s were vastly different. I mean, look at that.
Of course, but that was when they were coming up, and you had a lot of independent studios in the '80s, coming up and capitalizing on that. But these were all the same. Like Corman, for instance, had obviously been doing this for a long time. But you had your Cannons, you had all kinds of
Vestron, all those guys were doing live.
But then when you got into the other side of home video and stuff, you had like PM Entertainment. You had a bunch of guys doing things. Again, God bless them, but it was a whole switch around, and Hollywood's done this many times over. If they learn that they can put money into something, it's great gatekeeping, right? Because no one can put money into shit like they can.
It's true. And they will take your small idea, blow it up to the fucking biggest size.
Yep.
And this is the new shiny thing, and it's just...
Who couldn't compete? Who was doing this long before them? Roger Corman. Did Roger Corman become rich in the '90s? Did his movies become super big and wind up in the things, even though they were the same fucking movies? No, because he didn't put any money into them. So his movies were still always the B movies.
Well, just like Trauma, like the Trauma guys, same thing.
It's same similar thing. I mean, they put less money into the movies as time went on, which is interesting. But it's weird, I guess. But Star Trek is, I don't know, dead
as a franchise right now.
What do you say?
Yeah.
I mean, the movie that's coming out, Section 31, is dead on arrival at this point.
With fans,
and it's a streaming movie,
foes.
So it's not even a theatrical movie. So it's a blip on the radar. It doesn't really matter. I guess they didn't put any effort behind it to release it. But yeah, fans are done. Well, Star Wars is dead too.
I mean, it stars the Academy Award-winning Michelle Yeoh.
Isn't that crazy? She is really good. I like that her character and stuff. I did like Discovery, albeit I never considered it canon, and I never would. But eventually I had to give up on it, like most CW shows, right? It just runs out of steam, and then it becomes an ideological cesspool of nonsense.
Or a soap opera of nonsense. It just who's
I'm okay
hooking
with
up
the
with
soap
who.
opera stuff because, okay, that's bad. Yes, but even Star Trek could be a soap opera at times. A lot of it, or Next Generation, any of it could be, because you had the characters and you had to have throwaway episodes, but they're I guess less exciting episodes where they didn't do as much, But those were always interesting and character building and camaraderie building,
I always felt like when you got one of those episodes, or even a string of those episodes, that they were saving the budget for a good one down the line, where like the special effects were getting bigger.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
But they made a lot more episodes back in those days, so you got a lot more throwaway episodes.
Yeah, you had to. I mean, fuck, I think there would be maybe like 8 or 9 in a 22-episode season.
Yeah, we had less competition, so less competition, you can get away with a lot more.
And if for those of you who didn't know, that when people watch this week to week, there was not a lot of binge watching going on. So if you missed a week or two, the producers
no
would
binge
have
watching
that.
going on.
They figured that you were going to miss a week or two. So the main storyline wasn't week to week. It would be you dropped from a couple weeks and then picked up again.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. There you had an over, like a main arc that would go over a season or maybe more than one season, depending on what it was. It was true of almost every show. Then you had mini arcs that would go through maybe a couple seasons, maybe it would just be, or not a couple seasons, a couple episodes. But maybe it would just be an episode here or there. Just talk about throwaway episodes, which would just be more episodic, I guess. Makes sense, right? It's a television show. But yeah, just more. I mean, binge watching would have been. I did lots of binge watching in the 90s. That was syndication.
It was really, for me, it was when DVDs of television shows came out.
Oh, that was 100% it. Yeah.
That was when it finally started.
But that was in the 2000s. If we're talking about the 90s, then it would have been syndication, right? You would have been watching TBS or TNT. It was one of those syndication cable channels, and you would have been watching, your Seinfelds, your whatever, over again. But they would always, in syndication, was great because you talk about binge watching, but they would play like 2 episodes, right? They do like an hour blocks of things. Yeah, so you'd get like 2 episodes. So it literally was binge watching before binge watching, I guess.
And it was in sequence because the next day they would play the other 2 that were in sequence of that season.
Usually, yeah. Sometimes not, but usually, yeah.
Yeah, that's how I caught up with a lot of shows in syndication, including Star Trek: The Next Generation, really. Because, I think I caught the pilot. I remember catching the pilot when I was young on what was up here in the Bay Area, KICU Channel 36. And that was like our independent affiliate. And that had all the...
Yeah, Jesus, that's a high channel.
Channel 36.
Channel was that? You didn't have a... Yeah.
I want to say it was Channel 6, but it went by 36. You know what I mean? It was Channel 36, but it came in under 6. I don't know.
Interesting.
They used to broadcast the Oakland A's games on there as well. It was a real local shitty channel. I mean, I just sent you recently a YouTube clip about like 3 guys hosting a local fucking film show on there. They would have like the Midnight Monster movie. The Elvira thing would be on there at midnight.
Oh, yeah, sure. That's interesting. It would be on that.
Yeah, that was what we had on.
Well, I'm basically in the LA area, so we would get more. We would get like the official everything, I mean, our 2 through 13 channels were like the official like channels, or whatever. Like we had got like. Star Trek was on like CBS, obviously.
I wonder who licensed movies for that KICU, because that was the channel where I would tape The Sword and the Sorcerer or Invasion USA, or, they like the canon log catalog on that fucking station. And it was always the TV edits, but even back then those were intense when you were a kid, It's like
yes, we never got any of those on our channels, because our channels were all like CBS, ABC, NBC, Fox, right, Paramount. Whatever they happened to be, whatever they became throughout the 90s, like WB, all that kind of shit. And we never got any of those cool channels. That was always our cable channels had those.
This is probably like in the 80s, I want to say, before cable. Well, because he had cable. It would have been a cable. Well, it would have been a cable channel, I think, though. I don't know. I'm fucking it up. Somebody out there is going to listen to this and know exactly the channel I'm talking about and is going to remind, because... I said,
all I know is that the scrambled channels were the best.
For 3 seconds of a nipple, you're damn right it was.
Spice Channel, that was a good one.
Yeah, it was. And even watching, I remember being at a sleepover and we watched Cinemax, black and white Cinemax, and I shit you not, we watched, this was how young we were. We watched A Christmas Story when it was on its first run on Cinemax, and it was followed by Conan the Barbarian. Those 2 movies played back to back on Cinemax, and we watched them through black and white fuzz.
Yeah,
I think I'm still got fucking. Yep. I think I had some CTE from that. Eye strain, at least.
Yeah, good times. Good times.
I mean, you basically watched this movie a step above that on VHS, so I mean, it's basically the same thing.
Oh, it's way better than the scrambled stuff. I mean, but yeah, that was That's wild how far things have come now, Kids these days,
I mean, I hate to say that, but it's true. I mean, they take Christmas Story plays for 24 hours now on TBS during Christmas. We had to watch it through scrambled fucking black and white Cinemax feed. It's terrible.
Even when it became, even when it played normally through channels, or you had cable, you could afford like all these things. It still had to be, you had to get there at the right time, whatever. I mean, DVRs didn't come really around for normal people well into like the 2000s, really.
I remember when my buddy had a TiVo in 2004, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, I didn't. I'm like, "Wait a minute, I don't understand this." Like, you just pause the TV, and then we got our first DVR in probably, I'd say, 2005 or 6, somewhere in that range. Because by 2008 they were fairly
by
prominent.
then they were pretty normal. Yeah, even I think by the mid 2000s, but you're right, early 2000s was all TiVo stuff, and it wasn't until after that, I was really shortly after that, I was quick, that all the cable companies, that was your set-top box, was like a recorder, right?
Well, you do a lot of thrift shop searching and swap meet kind of stuff. I see none of them ever. I was going to say, do you ever run into a TiVo everywhere?
No, I would totally buy, for no reason whatsoever, I don't even know why, but if I even came across just a set-top box that was just a recorder, I'm not talking about like a DVD recorder or a hard drive recorder, but there was an actual like cable box that was like a fake TiVo thing,
Yeah,
I could probably buy it.
Yeah, like what junkyard has these fucking things?
I don't know where they went, but they're all gone. They don't work anymore, I imagine. You couldn't hook them in and work them, so
you can't rip anything off of it. Like if you had movies on there, still you couldn't be able to rip those.
But you could. That's why I'm saying I would totally get one, because there's a possibility you could. I could certainly, I would definitely try. I'd be interested in if I ever saw one, I would grab it. But I haven't even seen one in forever. But they haven't been around for a long time, right? Do you have one? You have cable now. Do you have one?
No, I never had. I don't have a DVR now, no. And I don't. Actually, I do have a DVR. We just don't. I don't use the cable box. I don't even know why we have it. It's ornamentary at this point. I mean, I use streaming services totally now. But it is weird because when the DVR first came out, it blew my mind that you could rewind live TV.
Bro.
What the fuck?
Tell me you didn't just have a litany, it's like a fucking list of shit that you recorded. Like, I had shows that I subscribed to, and it would just come in, and you would just sit down one day and be like, oh, this is amazing. That's half the reason why I think streaming just was so naturally and just took off, because it was already built into us, right?
I was recording things like the Mike Tyson murder mystery, the cartoon on Comedy Central that was like 15 minutes long. I was watching.
Well, I had all the late night shows recorded, and then I could just watch whatever one. And if it was just one that I didn't want to watch, just fucking delete it, whatever. It would go. And you just pick through, and I would just pick through it was like YouTube almost, in a sense.
It was an early version. Exactly what it was. And it was the same thing of like, I'll get around to watching that, and I knew I never would.
Right, you never would.
It was the beginning of that.
It's exactly the beginning of streaming, right? Oh, this is available. Awesome. I feel, that's good enough for me.
I need to see this because it's available. I'll put it in the queue and never watch it.
No, that was the fulfillment. I'm fulfilled. I could watch it. I'm good.
I'm whole now because I own this, yes, but I don't really own this.
You've done your job. Thank you.
Well, I think that's going to wrap up our episode on the look back to Star Trek Generation. I still can't get Star Trek out of my mouth tonight. I'm doing my Shatner impersonation. Incredible. We want to thank you guys for joining us on this look back. As always, check out our older podcasts on Movie Mavericks over at iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, wherever you're getting these. Like, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. It helps the algorithm and gets this podcast out to more people. Speaking for Trevor Anderson, I am Jason Rugard, and we are the Movie Mavericks.